then French Canal. Now, when Jean Cabot was here and he went back to France, he was saying, you know, over there you don't even have to, they didn't have fishing nets, they had buckets. You don't even have to put your bucket in the water, the fish are jumping in the ocean. So in France they have about 143 thereabouts meatless days. Finding a place so rich in fish is very lucrative wine. They already knew that from back in the, now it's supposed to say the turn of the 15th century. And then the French Acadians here in the 1600s, sorry, the 16th century, the 17th century, the 1600s, the French Acadians, when they discovered the coal, the French realized, oh no, that is a very, very wealthy area. We need to start to protect that area. So the French started building their fortification units. If you will look on your map, you will see one that says your Cape Breton map. At the bottom, it's St. Peter's. There's a St. Peter's channel there, canal, and across the water there, across the Door Lakes, Canada's largest inland sea, you'll see there is another area called St. Anne's Bay. Well, up there was Cape Dolphin, and they tried to put a fortification unit there and at St. Peter's. Both areas had terrible winters and not a good spot, unsuccessful. But you see, First Nations were friends with French Acadians now. They knew this area for thousands of years. And they were saying there's an area here where the water never freezes. And that's where we're traveling to right now, to Louisbourg. Heard of the, along the Gulf of St. Lawrence. A wonderful area for the French to have because it also leads into Quebec, which is also French. Those fortification units, as I said, were not successful, so then they commissioned an order to King Louis XIV. We found an area here that we can build a fort that the water doesn't freeze. The King Louis, he actually thought it was only going to cost him 6 million livres to build the fortress. Ended up costing over 30 million livres, making it the most grandest of all the fortification units at that particular time. Was France's most acclaimed fortress. It was definitely the most expensive. It took 28 years to build. And what they did, they commissioned people from France to come over here, and so what you'll see will be the French masonry. When they came over though, they were on 6-year contracts. And so you come over and you work the area and make some money in this new world that we need to help pioneer, and then you can come back from France and you may have some money in your pockets. Of course, the people that they had recruited to come were either in jail cells, in bars, or homeless. And so they had them come over and they were working to build this fortress and also serve as soldiers and guards. Under their 6-year contract, they may see that they still owed some money and they had to have a renewed and stay on. So this area of Louisbourg became very, very heavily populated. People would be coming from all over the world to be bartering and trading out at this very, very grand fortress. People from the Caribbeans, the East Indies, like I said, all over the world would be out here. This portion of Canada, where we're closer to the fortress that I'll point out as we get up closer, was actually the third largest population in North America in the early 1700s. This community of Louisbourg, as it stands today, has an approximate 880 population now. Now here, Louisbourg is really a bed community. People come out and work in Sydney. A lot of IT and at-home jobs are now